how is the food code created and what is the CFP I hear about? So maybe for those that don't know, walk us through the mechanics. I've been now the last two, Houston 2 years ago, and then we just got back from Denver. And I want to just take a second on that to just give a shout out to Troy at the state of Colorado. The state of Colorado, a state will host it every 2 years. It's a biennial Congress. And I'd say the state of we were very proud at HS to be a sponsor, but it was one of the best ones ever, just from a smoothness and the little touches and the food and the drink was fantastic.
Absolutely.
So to all the great folks at the state of Colorado, especially the Department of Health, which are great partners of HS GovTechs, that was a job well done. And I would be the first to say to renominate Denver for one of the other ones in the future, because it really was great. As a matter of fact, there are these little artifacts linking. I'm sorry, David, I'm going way off script. There we go. That two-shot is the an award we got from them. But like even the little touches, like those were the table centerpieces, very well done. It was all done sort of in Rocky Mountain motif, and it was wonderful. But anyway, back to the core of that. 2 years ago in Houston. So I'm going to give you my really high level rudimentary understanding, and then you unpack it. You have several days there. The first couple of days where you divide it up into councils, right? And so it's everything from science, and you'll fill everybody in on what those are. And then I always explain it to people like it's almost like Congress, right?
Yes.
You want to make a law, or you have a burning desire to change a law. And you don't just go to the floor for a vote in the House of Representatives. It has to go through the committee process, and it gets marked up and it gets fought over, and people go on cable news and, stab each other in the back and try to get leverage. And if it makes it all the way through the council, and you'll describe that process, if it gets all the way through that, then on the last day of CFP, there are 2 elected representatives from every state. But this is actually more like the Senate at this point. You got 100 basically, and the territories have representation. Yeah. And then the items that the committee have recommended to the full elected body then get taken up on the floor, and they go to a vote, right? Up or down. What stunned me the most, and I'm going to shut up and let you actually explain it, because you chair committees there, so you're way more qualified. But what stunned me was 2 years ago in Houston, there was a really hot button. And people, on the day when the whole body had to vote, there were people printing up leaflets and walking around the hall whipping votes for how they saw a particular bill. And I'll never forget one lady, doesn't matter what state, again, it's a funny story, we're not here to pick on anybody, but gave the spiciest speech I think I've ever heard in the context of environmental health. And basically told the delegates that she didn't know what they were smoking, and they'd have to be insane to think that the other side's argument made sense. Somebody also alluded to the fact that, well, if you want to kill kids, so politics can get into everything. But I just wanted to share my observation of it. It's not a frictionless process, but it's very orderly.
It is.
And it ends up changing the law that governs how restaurants are inspected. So you chair a couple of the committees. Maybe walk us through, from your perspective, what was interesting this year and what came through the process.
Yeah, so the process, when someone submits an issue, it gets prepared, documentation is shared with the general membership and the council that will make a decision whether they should continue on with the recommendation from the issue or not, is based on the discussion that happens during the council session. So once that decision is made after the council deliberates on it, where they actually use parliamentarian procedure. So there are certain rules that you can say this, you can do this, but you can't do this, you can't say this, etc., etc. So once that process is complete, then on the last day, the delegates from the states meet. And the day before, most of these delegates will have a discussion or a meeting in the evening. So they are prepared that tomorrow, issue number 15 has to be pulled or extracted. So once the issue is extracted, apparently the state delegates are discussing whether they should continue on with the decision that was made at the council or not. And so if that extraction is successful, then that issue is dead
Dead bill.
and it does not go anywhere. So once the delegation votes are captured, the council chairs and the CFP board will make the decision to write recommendation to FDA, USDA, etc., that this particular code section needs to be changed to this. And then the FDA will go through the process of reviewing it, making sure that the science and data supports it, and then they will make the ultimate decision whether this gets changed in the food code or not.
What generally, you may not know an exact percentage, but how much is it? More than half, less than half? What's kind of the adoption rate? If it goes all the way through, because CFP is a very orderly process with a parliamentarian, how often does it get ignored or kicked out by the FDA if it comes all the way through?
I would probably, again, I could be wrong, but I'd say 75% is accepted by FDA because most of the FDA representatives are also present during the council
So they're not
discussion.
surprised.
So
when
they're not
when it all
surprised.
lands in the FDA, they're not surprised.
Yeah. And many times the ones that they will not approve or pass along is primarily based on the fact that they will come back and say, this particular change is already addressed in section XYZ.
Yep.
And so most of the time, the reasons are compelling and supported. And sometimes they say, this is just not possible to enforce or regulate. So,
Which is a problem in lawmaking. If
It
you do
is.
something you can't regulate,
is.
it's a bad law.
yeah,
But it's fair to say in that 75-ish% range, that CFP has a huge outsized hold or impact on what the next FDA food code is going to be.
absolutely. And then that's why FDA will have a food code supplement, that because it's a 4-year cycle. And if something that has a really impactful decision, if you will, like let's say, for example, the food has to be stored at 41 or below as far as co-holding is concerned. And if the science supports that, no, it's got to be 39, then
Yeah.
FDA will do a amendment.
It's a very interesting process. And this may be a question some people have, how do the delegates that represent each state, how do they get selected? And if there was someone who aspired to that after hearing all of this or learning about CFPs, like, I want to be on that delegate floor one day casting a vote on behalf of my state, how does that work?
Most of the time, it's the state program managers that are the delegates. And in some states, that may be
So
three.
seniority.
Yeah. So there may be 3 positions. Like Washington, D.C. have half and half. So there are 2 votes because it's state and a local at the same time.
Yeah. And the territories get one, right? Like
Yes.
Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
but they're all represented.
California, I think, has 3 because of the
They did.
size.
Yeah, big
Yeah.
population. So some calculation based on that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's usually selected from supervisors.
And
or
some
managers.
state will have a Department of Health and a Department of Ag. So there will be half and half. But it's still, each state only gets 1 vote.
That's right, because they would and they both. I'm trying to remember. Are there instances where did the delegates have to vote together, or can you have a half vote yes and a half vote no?
It happens. It could
I
happen.
thought it
Yep.
did
Yeah.
in Houston, at least. That
Yeah.
that the state basically canceled themselves out, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
like the household where the husband and wife just do not see politically eye to eye.
Yeah.
And they're really grumpy on election day because they know they're just going to cancel each other out. Yeah, it does
I know
happen.
one perfectly well.